Hello everybody, this is Angelica. Welcome to the first episode in English of A Day in a Female Life. I'm here with Robyn.
Hi everyone.
Hi Robyn. So I'll just briefly tell you a bit about the podcast if you haven't read about it on Instagram or Facebook. So in this podcast, it will be me and Silvia working together. I'll do episodes in English from Ireland while she will do them in Italian from Italy. And in each episode there will be one guest who is either female or identifies in the female gender or is a non-binary female presenting. So absolutely, even though we hadn't specified this in the post, it wasn't done like intentionally. We're definitely open to any person who wants to come and speak on the podcast. And I also wanted to remind people that if you don't feel safe to speak here directly, you can send us an email or a direct message or a WhatsApp message if you have my number, and just we can speak without you necessarily having to come on the show. Last thing, my English is not that good, but I hope that you will understand every word I say and excuse me for any grammatical mistakes. And okay, so that's it. So Robyn, how are you today?
I am super today.
Okay. Just come out from training, so you're like high on adrenaline.
Yeah, I have that like dopamine high after like exercise, so yeah, perfect mood to
okay. Perfect
start
mood to
talking
talk
about these
sexual
experiences.
harassment. Exactly. So for those who didn't know, Robyn is my classmate. So tell us a bit of what you're studying.
So we are doing the Masters in Race, Ethnicity and Conflict at Trinity. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really interesting. There's been a lot of very, I think, like insightful discussions throughout the first semester. I'm definitely excited for this next semester because we've got like gender and race,
Exactly.
that module, so that's gonna be cool. And yeah, it's just like, I think it's a very like timely like masters to be doing
I
right
agree.
now,
Totally.
just
yeah.
with everything going on in the world and racism and
Absolutely.
yeah, it's I think we're in a really good space to be learning these kinds of things and hopefully changing the world.
Yeah. We're here. The 13 heroes of the future are in our classroom. Okay, so now let's go on to talk about sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. So do you have any episodes in particular, any experiences you'd like to share with us in particular, or whatever comes to mind?
Yeah, I guess one would sort of qualify more as like sexual harassment, and then the second one is more sexual assault.
Okay.
So the first one was, I think I was 19 at the time, and like it's just such a bizarre story. Like sometimes I feel like I dreamt it, like it didn't really happen.
Okay.
So at the time, I think it was around summer, and I was working for like a marketing company, and it was just doing promotional things for clients. So like, you know, if you ever go into supermarkets and you see like food samples, I was one of those people like offering food samples. So it was like a 2 or 3 day job, and I just went into Tesco, and that's like one of the company's biggest clients or whatever, so it was usually always like just giving out food samples in Tesco.
Okay.
Which
people love you.
Yeah. People also ask me all the time, they assume that I'm like a Tesco staff person, and they're like, oh, where's the butter? And I'm
no.
I don't know. Like,
sorry.
Check the dairy section.
Free food.
Yeah, like, do you want a cereal bar? Like, I don't know, okay?
Okay.
But yeah, so I think it was maybe the first day, and so I think, like, yeah, important part of the story, there's also another girl working there, but she was sampling like different food that was like down by the meat section or whatever. So I had like a friend there, but I was more kind of like to the front of the supermarket.
Okay.
So this like old man walks in, like 70 maybe, or like in his 70s, elderly man, like well dressed, and he came over and like, you know, I was being all smiley because I had to like, you know,
Sell
be
product.
polite and like, yeah, exactly, sell the product. And he, first thing he says to me, he was like, "Oh, you're very pretty," and I was like, "Oh, thank you.
Uncalled
That's
for.
so sweet." And then, you know, I was like, "Would you like to try a sample?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so he takes like a little container out of his pocket and like takes his teeth out to put them in this little like whatever container. And so then he starts like taking the samples. He took way more than he was supposed to. But then like he stayed and he kept asking me questions. And he was like, you know, how old are you? And where do you live? Like, do you live around here? And like after a few questions, because he was like, you know, what do you study? All this kind of stuff. And after a few questions, I got kind of like suspicious. So I lied and I was like, you know, oh yeah, I live locally, when I clearly don't. And then, yeah, I think at that point, I think we started maybe talking about like psychology, or like he definitely made multiple references to my looks or something like that. And then like literally, no word of a lie, he like goes into his jacket pocket and takes out like an envelope. And I was like, oh, am I about to get a tip for like is he paying me? And he was like, here you go. I was like, what's this? He was like, read it. So I open it up and I will tell you exactly what it was. It was a printed off Wikipedia page, and it was, I don't even know how to pronounce this, ephebophilia. So it was like, he literally printed this off, okay? And it says, ephebophilia is the primary sexual interest in mid to late adolescents, generally ages 15 to 19. It is one of a number of sexual preferences across age groups, subsumed under the technical term chronophilia. Strictly denotes the preference, like in italics, preference for mid to late adolescent sexual partners, not the mere presence of some level of sexual attraction. And so he like, it was like he was like grooming me or something.
He gave you a piece of paper with this definition.
Yeah, like literally this Wikipedia page. And I did not know what to do with that. And I freaked out, and I was just like, okay, that's really interesting. And he was like, yeah, it is. And then I was like, okay, I'll be right back, I'm just gonna go and get some more samples for you. And he was like, oh, great. And I ran down to the other girl who was working like in the meat aisle, and I just started crying. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, he just handed me this piece of paper, and I'm like really freaked out, and like, what do I do? And then she was like, what did you do? What happened? And she like stormed off and like went to go like give out to him, and she was like, you can't do this to women, you can't be in here, you can't speak to someone that way, or I don't even know what she said, but she was like, just go up to the break room, just like chill out for 5 minutes, like it's fine. And I remember there was like someone behind the meat counter, and I don't know if this man was like a regular, but she said something along the lines of like, I don't know, it was kind of like, oh, don't worry, or like, you know, tell security or something like that. So I went upstairs, sat down, whatever, kind of just like tried to process like what the fuck that was, and then came back down, and then the other girl who was working with me, she was like, okay, like we'll go like notify security. So we did, but at that point I think the guy was gone. And then like I went home that day. I was like on the bus, I told my friends what happened. I was like, this was just fucking strange. And I had to go back the next day to like continue working. And I was like, I literally was like crying to my mom in the kitchen. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go back. Like, please, can I just quit? And she was like, no, you made a commitment. Like, you have to work, and, you know, tell the manager what's happened. And I told, you know, like whoever was in the marketing company, I was like, you know, this has happened and I'm kind of freaked out. And so she came into the supermarket the next day and just like sat me down and had a chat, and she was like, you know, tell me, like, what happened, and, you know, don't worry, the security guard will be there, and he'll kind of look out for you, or he'll make sure that he doesn't come back, or, like, you know, give us a description of what he looked like, that kind of thing. So I was on edge the whole time then.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was, like, walking around, like, I could leave the stand as well. I didn't have to monitor it the whole time. But yeah, so that was just, like, because I was like, what did he expect me to do?
So random. What I'm still trying to like believe what, like,
bizarre.
What the hell?
Bizarre. And
what was his, like, what did he expect? Like, you to say, oh, okay, so this is your interest, like,
yeah, I'll take 500 a month, like, what?
No, that's so creepy. I'm so sorry you went through that. Like, what the hell? And was there no one around, like, while he was there standing for, like, 15 minutes or whatever? Like, he stayed there for a while.
Yeah, so. I, like, you know, I don't know if anyone saw him hand me the note, or but, you know, like, I guess if someone had seen that, like, maybe they would have thought, like, oh, that's, like, her grandfather, or, like, someone she knows, or you know, like, it seemed normal, and, like, if you weren't in earshot, or, like, if you didn't see what I was reading, you wouldn't think anything was weird, because it wasn't like he was, like, particularly close. He wasn't in my personal space, and it was just kind of, like, I guess mildly uncomfortable that, like, he just kept talking about my looks and stuff. And I was like, okay, like, go away now, like, put your teeth back in your mouth and, like, hobble off.
And what do you, like, when you think back to that episode, to that experience, like, do you feel that you could have done something, like, because I usually feel like when things happen, I'm, like, paralyzed, and I'm like, what's going on, and then I just walk away instinctively. And then when I think about it, I'm like, I should have just started shouting at him, like, you're so inappropriate. And I think of all these scenarios where I could have reacted like that, and I get so worked up, because in that moment I just couldn't. I was just, like, blocked.
Yeah, so. 100%. Like, I always think about that, even in situations. I'm like, oh, what would I do if, like, I experienced racism? I'd like to think that I'd be like, don't you dare be like, no, you're a racist. But, like, I'm so like, anti-confrontation that, like, I can't do anything in the moment. I guess same. Like, thinking back, I could have just, like, excused myself and literally walked to the security guard and be like, look what I'm holding in my hand right now, and, like, given him the piece of paper and be like, you know, that's kind of sick. But yeah, it was totally fight or flight, and I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here, because like, it's just weird. And then, you know, I was having these thoughts of, like, what if he's, like, waiting outside the supermarket for me? Like, what if I get out at, like, 4 or 5 p.m. and he's just there? Like, or, you know, I was, like, very careful not to say where I was living, and, like, stupidly I was like, oh yeah, I'm in UCD, and I was like, he's an old age pensioner, he could just fucking wander around UCD for the day, because what else is he doing? Like,
and it happens to me, like, also in the first episode, we recorded in Italian. I was, like, stopped by this guy here in Dublin, and the first thing he asked me was my name, and I thought it was something like, you know, when people ask you your name because they want to, like, be friendlier, and so, like, what's your name? Oh, okay, so Robyn, where's the closest pharmacy? You know, okay. Yeah. And I gave him my name, and it was just my name, so, I mean, he couldn't do much with just my first name. But I was like, why am I so naive? Like, why am I so stupid? And so, so I totally get that. But that's, I'm shocked by how comfortable he was with just, like, handing you a note with it, and that he's interested in teenagers. And it was so specific. And it was like, he's targeted me because he thinks I fit the age range, which I did. And then, like, did he leave you the piece of paper? Did he, like,
no, I gave it back to him. I should have fucking kept it. Like, I should have been like, here's my proof. Like, this stranger has just handed me the freakiest document I've ever read. Um,
100%.
yeah, but
Who knows who